Our guest today for the Horn Notes video podcast is John McGuire. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Now, he's the horn professor at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. And the reason we have him here today talking is because he's hosting the 2017 edition of the International Horn Competition of America. And it's one I've known about this for a long time. I entered it actually as a doctoral student back in 1989, believe it or not. And I came in, I tied for second prize on it. The winner that year was Michelle Stapleton, who listeners might have heard of. There's definitely some good players go through the thing, and it's happening again this year. And I feel it's an event that needs a little bit of publicity. It would be good, and at least I like to get the word out. I also judged it in 2005, so I got a little perspective. When did you first come to know about this event?
Well, for me, it was back in the mid '90s when I was doing my undergraduate at the University of Alabama. My first experience with it was in 1997 when it was then called the American Horn Competition. And I was, competing in the university division. And, as a 19-year-old kid that didn't really know much about what he was doing, just kind of showed up and played. And, I had I was very fortunate to make it to the finals and was a finalist with the university division. And that year it was hosted at the University of Santa Barbara by Steve Gross. So that's, basically about the last 20 years I've been involved with it in some capacity, either as a competitor or the last several rounds as a judge and now as a host.
Yeah, so for those not familiar, there's two divisions. There's a university division and a professional division. So what's the general outline of who can enter which one?
Well, the university division is basically open to anyone from the age of 18 up through around the doctoral age at university. The professional division is meant for whoever people who have a full-time job performing or teaching at a university that would be considered professionals in some capacity in the field.
Right. I think that I was just looking at this. I think the cutoff is something like age 27 for the university division.
Right.
I was looking back at my notes from when people wonder how many people enter, and I think it's going to be different every year.
Yes.
But I did find, I've got two things actually in my archives. One, I've actually got all of my notes from when I entered it, like the judges' remarks.
Oh, wow.
I've still got them in a folder that they were in my parents' attic, and then I found them when I was cleaning some stuff. So that was interesting. But the other thing that I have from when I was judging, I put a little article on my blog, which was then the pre-Horn Matters blog, and that was 2005. And one note I had there is I had listened to 51 people play Mozart when I was judging. And that's a number that year. There was 51 university applicants. I think it's going to vary a little each year, but probably gets into that range. What are you hoping to get there, I guess?
Ideally, the university division, we view this as a very pedagogical tool for the larger American horn community, just getting students in and up and performing this repertoire. We would love to have, 50, 60 is a good number. If we could get, 80 or more, that would be, absolutely terrific. Having sat on those judging panels, I can tell you, as you well know, once you get past about 30, it starts to, your hand starts to hurt from writing all the comments and whatnot. So I don't know that the judges are looking for those huge numbers, but I can tell you that the IHCA really does want to have as many people as can possibly make it.
Right, and that would kind of be my goal, too, in talking to you as well, because I think there's some studios where it's really well known.
Right.
But there's people out there that are probably hearing of this for the first time. Their horn teachers never mentioned it. No, they haven't. It's not like there's a bunch of, advertising just, pushing it. It's like people know it, but...
Right.
So anyway, this is just kind of my contribution to that. I enjoyed when I was judging it. One of my other comments from that old article was that I could listen to Mozart all day. I mean, Mozart concertos it's good music.
Yes.
There's other pieces I wouldn't want to hear all day.
Right.
But Mozart, I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's the foundation of our repertoire. It's, you know, one of the greatest composers ever, so absolutely.
And at the same time, too, it's like that particular repertoire is like there's a certain percentage of students that can play it very well.
Yes.
There's quite a percentage of others that need to work on it more, to put
right.
it like in a positive spin.
Yes.
They need to work on it more.
Right.
Especially work on their light tonguing and some things like that, which are skills, but you got to learn it. You just got to, you know.
And this is a big step in that process, I think, is you know, it's one thing to work on that week in and week out with your own teacher, but to get, you know, constructive feedback and you know, and comments from a wide range of, you know, very well-known horn players around the country is invaluable. So.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned we were chatting before we started recording, and you mentioned a little about the history of the thing. I mean, that also I think would surprise people who don't know anything about it particularly. When did it start? And you know, previously I sometimes refer to it as the competition formerly known as the American Horn Competition.
Right.
Because I like that name. It was a nice, catchy name, just 3 words. But I understand, you know, they've changed the name to what it is now, so we roll with that. But what's kind of the history of it in a nutshell?
Well, in a nutshell, basically, you know, in the early to mid 70s, a man by the name of Elliot Higgins, that, you know, is probably familiar to your region of the country, certainly recently passed away, was at an IHS workshop and noticed all of the European horn players, soloists coming out and standing and playing very soloistically and very convincingly, and was not as impressed with the level of the American horn solo playing that was on display, and wanted to do something about it to help address that, to help further develop this American style of solo horn playing. And so he started the what was originally called the Heldenleben competition, and it was that way for a few cycles, and then you know, through the 80s eventually became the American horn competition. Through the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, I believe, and then now the International Horn Competition of America. You know, and past winners includes kind of a list of a who's who. You know, people like Lowell Greer and David Thompson and Eric Rusk, and you know, the list goes on and on. Of you know, you look at the winners and it's like, well, yep, heard of that person, yep, know that person, yep, have that guy's recordings. So it's a pretty prestigious list of winners.
Yeah, and there's a list of some of this to be found in the website. You can find it's IHCAamerica.org, and there's some history in there and some other stuff about travel, lodging, registration, all that kind of thing, like you would expect. Now, one thing that I always remember from the one I attended and the one that I was a judge at was the opening clinic. So, do you have something planned for that?
Generally, yes. What we like to do, Steve Gross, the director of the competition, likes to host somewhat of an informal opening clinic where all the judges for both the professional and the university divisions are on stage, and it's just an open panel discussion amongst all the judges, but you know, taking questions from the competitors that are there, and you know, most of the time the questions come from the university students. And it can range, you know, from how do you do this, or how do you approach this aspect of your playing, to, you know, how do you deal with performance anxiety, or you know what was your experience with this competition when you were in our shoes, and that kind of thing. So it's, you know, it historically seems to go in any number of directions, and can go on for a very long time, because as you could imagine, with that many students and competitors, there's an awful lot of curiosity there, which is a very good thing.
Yeah. Now, one question I can think of, too, that people might be curious about if they look at the list online is there isn't always a winner.
Right.
Right. Now, and that relates to how it's judged. And have you judged it yourself as well?
I've judged the university division 2 or 3 times now, yes.
Yeah. So the first thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the first vote is basically to decide if we feel that there's somebody who played on a level to win.
Correct.
And then there's subsequent voting for the winner. But anyway, the point is that they don't always give a winner. They have to feel that the level was reached, kind of an international standard, which is sort of a floating thing. But but you kind of know what it is if you're a judge, if you heard it or not.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know it if you hear it. And, the thing that we always, having sat on the judging panel, that we always took very great care with is to make sure that we considered each competitor on their own, the merit of their own performance. And some years you have more people that meet the standard that the committee has, and move on to the second round and then subsequently the finals, than others. Some years you have very few people that move on. So it can vary from year to year, certainly.
Yeah. So that's to say too, like sometimes I think people will think like, oh no, there's going to be all these people entering, I have no chance. But actually, you do have a chance because really you're just competing against yourself ultimately. You just go in and play the best you can, and then what happens happens. Yes,
exactly. And in fact, one of my students earlier today was asking me, well, how many people make the second round? And it's like, I don't know.
However many make the second round.
Yeah, it just depends on how many people play really well in the first round. So which and I will say that having observed this competition in various capacities over for over 20 years, I can say that it would be it's not inconceivable because it's happened that we haven't had a winner in one of the divisions, but the level of horn playing and solo horn playing in this country seems to be going up exponentially every 2 years that we have this. So I would be surprised if we didn't have a winner in one of the divisions, but it's not unheard of.
Right. Now, just turning another little quick topic too. I mean, what's the facilities like there? First off, not everybody's going to know immediately where Fort Collins is. So where is Fort Collins?
Well, Fort Collins is about 45 minutes to an hour north of Denver, just straight north of Denver. So we're on the east side of the Rocky Mountains. I'm looking out my window right now of my office, and it's snowing, and I can see the Rockies right out of my window. So we're in very close proximity to a major metropolitan area, a huge airport.
And like Rocky Mountain National Park and stuff, not that far away, and
not far away at all. It's about an hour drive from where I am right now.
Yeah, so just that alone, it's an awesome time of the year to be at when they have the competition. Late August.
It's beautiful.
An awesome time to go there.
Yeah.
And visit. In terms of the school itself, I mean, what's you're going to be in how big a hall will the competition be in?
Well, we have a couple of different halls. The building that we're housed in is called the University Center for the Arts, and it actually is the original Fort Collins High School building that was built back in the 1920s. In the 1990s, the school district built a new high school, and this building sat abandoned for several years, and the university ended up buying it because it's literally right across the street from the CSU's campus, and gutted it and renovated it and turned it into a performing arts facility. So, we have it's called the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. The halls that we'll be performing in, the professional division will be what we call Griffin Concert Hall, and it seats about 550 people. The stage is a nice big stage. It can seat a full symphony orchestra. The acoustics are quite good in it. The university division, at least the prelims, will be in what we call our organ recital hall, and we call it the organ recital hall because when they moved into this building about 6 or 7 years ago, they transported the custom-built organ from another building on campus, hand-carried it, each pipe over here to the organ recital hall and set it up, and it's literally sitting on the stage in the organ recital hall. So it's a very beautiful stage and setting for the university division.
Wow, that sounds great. I mean, the building sounds actually really cool. I didn't know they had done that. I mean, so they were still structurally sound and they could do that interesting thing. Is cool.
Yeah, it's really a unique facility that we have here. We're quite proud of it.
Wow. Well, just to kind of wrap up, I mean, I think we covered a few topics. So, again, go to the website, which has a lot of information on it. Of course, you can also contact you, and I think you're easy to find, too. But I think the website actually gives you most of the information you need to know. The music and the different rounds and everything is very critical, especially if you're thinking about entering and you still have an ability to plan your recital a little bit. You might kind of look at what's there and think about it, at least for your juries or something if you've got a jury system. I don't know. Any other quick thoughts? You've been through a few of these, and but not as a host. So good luck on that.
Yeah, every time I talk to somebody who's hosted it, that's always what they say is, well, good luck with it. It's a little bit of a monster as far as organization, but we've hosted these things before, so we're looking forward to it. And registration will be open in mid-March. So we should start seeing hopefully lots of numbers coming in with participants.
Great. Okay, well, thank again, John McGuire, for joining us here for this episode of the podcast to talk about the International Horn Competition of America. And again, this year's edition, he's the host of this at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. So again, thank him for joining us, and be tuning in for more episodes of the Horn Notes video podcast. Okay, our guest today for I can't talk. I think I'm getting the outtake out of the way. And again, this year's edition, he's the host of it at the University of I'm going to say it wrong. He's the host of it at I'm blanking now. I got to look.
Colorado State.
He's the host of this at Colorado State University in Fort Collins.